Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about the topic of mail-order brides that is a common occurrence in Vietnam and Russia. I will discuss about mail-order brides by highlighting the examples and comparing the similarities and differences between Vietnam and Russia. So what are mail-order brides? Mail-order brides are women who list themselves in catalogs or online matchmaking sites for men to select them as marriage candidates. However, nowadays this term is used to describe women with the intention to look for men, usually from a more developed country, who are willing to marry them. So how does it go about? Similar to a matchmaking agency, there is an international marriage agency that helps to liaise men who are interested in marrying the female candidates in their list. Men can go online to browse through catalogs to look at the profiles of the women, and those who are interested would contact the agency, and sometimes there are also instances where men travel directly to the country to look for a bride. Russian women, most of them who are actually in the Ukraine, go to physical agencies to sign up for the website. Agency staff usually vet this woman. The women who are accepted are usually verified. Their IDs get scanned and copied into the agency's database. Russian women have to be pretty young, thin or educated enough, if not she will not be able to use the service. This is especially true for websites that charge those looking for a bride to communicate with the woman. Because looks are very important in attracting men to come, they naturally want to choose the prettiest ones to maximize their interest and profit. Accepted candidates will then be offered a discounted or free glamour shoot, which basically involves suggestive photographs in bed, on the beach, and so on, as seen in the example given. In Vietnam, the process is similar, where a woman goes to an international marriage agency to apply and wait for men to pick them. However, there are instances where men directly travel to Vietnam to look for a bride. One Singaporean agency, JNN Vet advertises that men can travel to Vietnam, select a bride, get married and return home all in the space of a week. The new wives join them a month later once the visa formalities are completed. There are also cases where agencies will bring the Vietnamese brides over to have face-to-face meetings with interested men. If they are chosen, these Vietnamese brides then have to go for a test to make sure they are virgins. Most Vietnamese brides can be as young as 18. If they are not virgins, their marriages won't last long. This is an example of how an advertisement for Vietnamese brides looks like, and this is how the women's profiles look like on an online website. How did all this started? It all started when men in North America went to work in the West and found success there. However, they gained financial support, but they were lacking a wife and family. Therefore, men started to post advertisements on newspapers or even wrote letters to churches to look for a wife. Women were willing because they found it as an escape from their current life. In Vietnam, the marriage migration phenomenon gained momentum after the opening of Vietnam's economy to foreign investment. In the 1990s, there was an influx of Taiwanese businessmen traveling to work in the country. These businessmen found Vietnamese women with Confucian values similar to their own and realized that they might make suitable partners. Upon returning to Taiwan, friends and family members caught on, and opportunists realized that they could make a profit by working on arranged marriages. According to the International Organization for Migration, 133,000 Vietnamese women married foreigners between year 2005 and year 2010. People might question the reasons as to why these women are so willing to get out of their country and take the risk to go all the way abroad to get married to unknown men. Let's study the reasons why women want to be mail-order brides in Russia. Firstly, there is a problem of gender imbalance in Russia. Most people think that Russian brides are desperate women who want nothing but to get married to a foreigner and enjoy their lives. But in fact, this is not really the case. Russia has a man shortage. There are roughly 8 men for every 10 women in a culture which is very marriage orientated. Consequently, many Russian women are compelled to look outside of Russia for a husband. Outside of Moscow and St. Petersburg, and also in the Ukraine, the economic situation is bad. Many people live below the poverty line and jobs are scarce. If we look at this graph, we see that there is a sharp drop in the labor force of Russia from year 2000 onwards. It is also very expensive to move out to the big city, so the easiest way to get out is to get married to a Western man. In Russia, women still have low social status because women are expected and raised to be able to cook, clean, and make babies. So every man have that expectation that their women have to cook, clean, and take care of babies more than anything else. Therefore, in Russia, it is seen as essential for women to get married at a relatively young age, with 25 being the maximum age. As a result, some women want to get married to the West to have more freedom. Also, because marriage is a substantial part of Russian culture, a woman is considered an old maid at 30 years old. With over 4 million more women than men from the ages of 15 to 64, marriage opportunities are slim at home and worsened by the life expectancy difference between men and women. Likewise, the problem of sexism affects the women in the workforce. 52% of Russia's workforce is made up of women, yet they often hold low positions of prominence in their home country and work jobs with less respect and lower wage, such as teaching or physician positions. What is worse is that women in Russia earn 43% of what men do. As such, finding a foreign husband gives a woman a chance to leave her country and find better economic opportunities. The biggest reason as to why Vietnamese ladies decide to be mail order brides is because of their family backgrounds. Vietnam is a less developed country, and as compared to Russia, it is evidently poorer. Therefore, people in Vietnam mostly live in the rural areas where farming is their main source of livelihood. However, farming does not earn much revenue, so the girls in the family will sacrifice themselves to marry to another country so as to be able to feed and support their family. Going to another country will not only provide the wife's family with financial support directly from the husband, but the wife as an individual can also contribute to financial support. She can do so by working in the husband's country. There are definitely more job opportunities or ways to earn money when one travels out of rural Vietnam to get married in the city. On the other hand, although some Vietnamese women might have the heart to marry local men back at home, local men are said to be always drunk on the streets, and the existing problem of lacking finance in Vietnamese families will always exist as they are mostly still a country that depends on agriculture as their main source of revenue. Although there are women who seek for happiness out of their hometown, there are marriages that end up far from fairy tale endings. In Russia, Nina Reiser was murdered by her husband Hans Reiser, a businessman and computer programmer whom she met after placing an ad in the mail order bride catalog. She had a restraining order against him during her divorce proceedings. Nina was first reported to be missing on September 2006. Hans was then arrested and found guilty of first-degree murder in April 2008. Later in July 2008, Hans led the police to his wife's remains with an agreement that led him to be charged with second-degree murder. There had also been several murders of mail-order brides in South Korea. On May 24th, 2011, a South Korean man stabbed his Vietnamese wife to death while the couple's 19-day-old baby lay next to her. The man, a farmer, had been matched up with his foreign bride through a broker. In 2010, another Vietnamese woman was killed by her husband a week after they were married. In 2008, a Vietnamese woman jumped from an apartment building to her death after being abused by her husband and mother-in-law. After studying the various cases of mail-order brides in Russia and Vietnam, let us now compare the similarities and differences. In both countries, women go through an international marriage agency to register as a mail-order bride. Secondly, Russia's and Vietnam's mother tongue are not similar to the country that they migrate to, therefore they might have communication barrier with their husbands. There will also be a clash of cultures that they have to adapt to when the mail-order brides migrate. In both countries, there are mail-order brides due to poverty reasons. so people go out to find better future. There are also cases where mail order brides from both countries suffer from abuse, and there are also cases of murder. One main reason for the phenomenon of mail order brides in Russia is the social factor of an imbalance of males and females in Russia, whereas in Vietnam it is the economic factor of poverty that results in Vietnamese girls going to other countries to seek for marriage. In the case of Vietnamese brides, they have to be certified virgins before they can be married off. If they are not virgins, marriage won't last long. Vietnamese brides can be as young as 18. On the other hand, sex sells for Russia, as the agency requires women to take suggestive photos to attract the men. In Russia, there is more pressure and reasons as to why women become mail order brides. Due to social reasons like sexism in Russia, some Russian brides seek happiness in other countries. But in Vietnam, most of them decide to migrate in order to support their family financially. In Vietnam, it is mainly due to an economic factor. Another difference is that Vietnamese brides are married mostly to people in Southeast Asia, whereas Russian brides are married off to the west side like America. What can we learn from this topic of mail order brides in Russia and Vietnam? We learned that social and economic factors motivate the mail order brides in Russia. However, the main underlying problem is the social factor of sexism that subsequently leads to the economic factor of low wages for women in the workforce. Because women are deemed just to be housemakers, Russian women are seen with low prominence in their society, therefore they have low position and low wages in the workforce, earning 43% of what men earn. Another social factor that contributes is that there is gender imbalance in Russia, which results in women seeking for potential husbands out of their own country. In the case of Vietnam, although there are women who are in the search of love life in other countries, more often they are seeking for someone who can provide the financial support as they live in rural areas where farming is the only and main source of livelihood. Through this case study of mail order brides in Russia and Vietnam, we can learn that there are people in the world who are living in poverty and therefore have to sacrifice themselves and take the risk to go to another country that they are not familiar with in search of a better life. Although there are cases of successful marriages, on the contrary, there are also marriages that end up far from a fairy tale romance, to the extent that some of these wives were actually abused and even murdered by their husbands. The husbands that they pledged their happiness and lives to, the husbands that were supposed to give them love, protection, and financial support they need, giving up their life back at home in hopes of leading a better life, but to no avail. Since I came from Singapore, I wanted to highlight the culture of mail order brides that is high in demand in my home country. Although people might say that these Vietnamese brides sell their bodies, which is of no difference to prostitution, I find that the process of finding a marriage partner is similar to dating agencies where local people seek to find a partner. Therefore, I don't think that they are selling their bodies, as they are only seeking an agency as a middleman to find the perfect husband for them, since they are unfamiliar with Singapore, even though their main reason of motivation for such marriages are to seek financial support. However, finance is also important in keeping up a family. However, these kinds of marriages are at a disadvantage to the Vietnamese ladies as they are not protected, because happiness in such marriages cannot really be controlled by the agency. The agency's motives are usually more driven by profits than the welfare of the people they profess to help. In a short video I watched on YouTube, there is a boss of Vietnamese brides agency that said, "Happiness in the marriage depends on the couple. We can't guarantee anything. We can give a very good bride to the husbands, but if he doesn't love her, we can't do anything." The harsh reality is that often these cases work more in favor of the party finding the bride, as the matchmaking agency would resort to all means to find a good bride, as it is seen as a form of business to them. And as long as the client pays the amount for such arrangements, after it's a done deal, the agency does not really care about the Vietnamese brides and whether she adapts well to the new family or whether she gets accepted. All this is up to the couple. These clueless Vietnamese brides are then left alone to adapt to the surroundings. Conclusion, I don't think mere order brides might be a very negative issue, as economic and social factors force these women to marry out. If given a choice, they would have wanted to marry internally instead of going through risks and going overseas. Therefore, I find that it is only natural for women in Russia and Vietnam to venture out of home to marry abroad so as to secure a better future. I hope you have learned a lot about mere order brides through my video presentation, and thank you for paying attention. Bye bye!